I can never forget that day. I was lying on the cold hospital bed, legs trembling, stomach cramping, eyes wide with fear. The nurse came back into the room, holding a white file close to her chest like it held the truth of my entire life. She sat beside me, her eyes gentle but filled with pity. "Ma'am," she said softly, "this is your third miscarriage in a row. We ran some tests. There are signs of repeated exposure to strong abortion-inducing drugs. That's what's causing the pregnancies to fail." My mouth went dry. My heart pounded so loud, I thought it would burst. "What?" I whispered, barely able to speak. "I never took anything. Never. I've been trying to keep my babies." She looked down, as if she didn't want to say more. But I needed to know. "Is it possible someone put it in my food or drink?" I asked, almost choking on my own words. She hesitated, then gave a slow nod. "Yes, that's very possible." That moment tore my world apart. My fiancé, Richard, had been the one giving me most of my drinks at home. He always said he was looking after me, bringing me juice, smoothies, tea, especially when I felt tired or nauseous. I stared into space, my heart breaking into pieces too small to gather. I had lost not one, not two, but 3 babies, and I just found out it wasn't nature, it wasn't fate, it was him. Why would someone I loved, someone I planned to marry, do this to me? I stood up slowly from the bed, despite the pain, and walked out of that hospital like a ghost. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just kept hearing one thing in my head. He made me barren. But I couldn't let it go just like that. No, I had to know why. I had to know how long he'd been doing this. And I had to find out what else he had done to me. Let me tell you how it all began. It was the year 1984. I was just 24 and full of dreams. I worked as a receptionist in a law firm in London. That's where I met Richard. He was one of the junior lawyers who had just been hired. He was tall, handsome, and had a voice like melted chocolate. Every woman in the office noticed him, but somehow he noticed me. He used to drop compliments like candy. "You have the most beautiful smile I've ever seen. You make this whole office brighter." I laughed it off at first, but he was persistent. Before long, we were having lunch together, walking home together, and then dating. Richard made me feel like I was the only girl in the world. He bought me roses on Fridays, cooked me dinner on Sundays, and always looked into my eyes when he spoke, as if I was all that mattered. My friends were jealous. My mom called him the dream man. When he proposed to me just 2 years later, in front of the River Thames with a silver ring and a nervous smile, I said yes without blinking. I thought I had won the jackpot. But things started changing when I got pregnant the first time. He didn't look happy. I remember telling him in our small kitchen, holding the pregnancy test in my shaky hand, tears in my eyes from joy. But instead of jumping with me, he sat down, rubbed his face, and muttered, "Are you sure this is the right time?" I felt like a bucket of cold water had been poured over me. "What do you mean?" I asked. "We're getting married. Isn't this perfect?" He forced a smile, hugged me tightly, and said, "Of course. I'm just surprised, that's all." But from that day he changed. He started bringing me more drinks than usual. Orange juice in the morning, smoothies in the evening, herbal teas at night. He would insist I drank every last drop. Sometimes I'd feel strange after drinking them, nausea, dizziness, cramps. He always told me it was normal pregnancy stuff. 3 weeks later, I began to bleed heavily. I lost the baby. I blamed myself. I thought I had overworked. Or maybe my body wasn't strong enough. Richard was distant but gentle. He held my hand at the hospital and said things like, "It wasn't meant to be, and we'll try again." And we did try again. A few months later, I was pregnant once more. This time I was careful. I avoided stress. I prayed. But the same thing happened again. Richard was always giving me things to drink. I would wake up feeling groggy, my stomach hurting. I didn't know what was happening to me. After the 3rd miscarriage, I broke. That's when the nurse told me the truth, that abortion pills had been in my system. It didn't just break my heart. It shattered my trust in everything. I began to question every memory, every sweet moment, every "I love you." I started wondering if he had ever loved me at all. Or was I just some kind of plan? Was there someone else? Was I just a distraction? But what tore me to pieces the most was the thought that I would never be a mother again. The doctor said my womb was damaged from repeated drug exposure. I was now barren. For life. And the man responsible, the man I loved with all my heart, was smiling in our apartment, probably planning dinner like nothing had happened. That night, I lay beside him in bed, his arm casually around my waist. My heart was pounding in my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him why. But I didn't. Because I had a better plan. I was going to catch him. And what I found out next was worse than anything I could have imagined. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I lay beside Richard, listening to the rhythm of his breathing. I kept thinking about the nurse's words. There are signs of repeated exposure to strong abortion-inducing drugs. My mind played back every drink he had ever given me, every moment he insisted I stay hydrated, and every time he acted strangely when I questioned the taste of something. I had to be smart. If I confronted him too soon, he would lie. Or worse, he would disappear before I could gather proof. So I made up my mind to play along. Pretend everything was fine. The next morning, I smiled at him. I even kissed him before he left for work. "Don't forget your lunch," I said, handing him a small bag I packed myself. He smiled back at me like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't killed 3 children growing inside me. Like he hadn't destroyed my womb. But behind my smile was a plan. The first thing I did was go to a private clinic and request copies of my test results. I didn't want any mistakes. I needed facts. Something I could look at over and over again. Something that would make it impossible for me to deny what had happened. The report was clear. Misoprostol, mifepristone, 2 drugs used to induce abortion, found in high levels in my blood during the last miscarriage. That was all I needed to see. When I got back home, I started watching him. Every little thing he did. Every drawer he opened. Every package he received. I became a silent detective in my own home. And then something strange happened. A small brown envelope arrived one afternoon while he was at work. It had no name on it, just our address. I was tempted to open it, but I hesitated. I didn't want to act out of desperation. So I waited. When Richard came back and saw the envelope, his face changed. Just for a second, fear. He quickly picked it up, said it was probably a client issue, and took it straight to the bedroom. But I had seen the way his hands shook. I pretended to sleep that night. Around 2 a.m., I heard him get up, open the wardrobe, and shift something behind my suitcase. I waited until morning, and when he left, I opened the wardrobe. I found a locked metal box. Small. Heavy. Cold. I searched everywhere for the key. Drawers. Pockets. Under the mattress. Nothing. That's when I remembered a little habit he had. He always kept his watch case locked. That watch case had a hidden compartment. I had once teased him about it when he showed me the secret button. "You hide candy in there or what?" I had asked. He'd laughed it off. I opened the watch case and found the key. My heart beat faster as I opened the metal box. Inside were 2 pill bottles, both labeled with names I could hardly pronounce. The same names from my medical report, misoprostol, mifepristone. There were receipts too. All dated around the times I had been pregnant. All purchased online with his name on them. But that wasn't the worst part. There were photos. Pictures of a woman with a baby, taken in secret. Richard was in one of them, holding the baby in the background, smiling like a proud father. My knees gave way. Was this his child? Was this the woman he had been hiding? Suddenly, so many pieces started falling into place. His late-night calls. His business trips. His mood swings every time I mentioned babies. He already had a child. And he didn't want any with me. That's when the pain turned into fire. I wasn't just a victim, I was being used. That evening, I didn't wait for him to come home. I went to see a friend. Caroline, someone I hadn't spoken to in months because Richard didn't like her energy. She was the only person who ever warned me. "Something about that man gives me chills," she once said. I had laughed at her back then. She didn't laugh now. She held me, fed me, and cried with me. Then she helped me form a new plan. The next day, we went to a lawyer. I handed over everything. The test results, the pill bottles, the receipts, the photos. The lawyer stared at the pile of evidence, stunned. You have a solid case, he said. This is attempted forced abortion. Possibly even assault. You could press charges. But I didn't answer right away. Because deep inside me, I didn't just want justice. I wanted truth. I needed to hear it from his lips. I needed him to say it. So I went back home, placed the metal box right on the dining table, and waited. When Richard walked in that evening, he froze the moment he saw the box. I didn't say a word. I just looked at him. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes flicked to the front door, as if planning to run. I know everything, I said coldly. He didn't deny it. Not even for a second. He sat down slowly, held his head in his hands and whispered, I didn't want to hurt you. I laughed. A dry, bitter laugh. You didn't want to hurt me? I said, tears pouring down my cheeks. You made me barren. He looked up at me. His face a mixture of guilt and frustration. You don't understand, Grace. I already have a son. I couldn't afford more children. I'm barely managing that one. My heart twisted. So you decided to kill ours instead? He stood up angrily. It wasn't killing. It was preventing a disaster. We weren't ready. I stepped back, trembling. You had no right. No right to take that choice from me. He started pacing. If you go to the police, I'll lose everything, my job, my son. I looked him dead in the eyes. And I've already lost everything. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a small recording device. His face turned white. I recorded everything, I said. Every word. I watched as panic flooded his eyes. Then he ran. Straight to the bedroom. I followed him. He opened the drawer, grabbed his passport and some cash. He was trying to run. But I was faster. I had already called the police before he got home. They were waiting outside. When he opened the door to flee, they grabbed him. And as they handcuffed him, he looked back at me and said something that chilled me to the bone. You think you've won. But you've ruined us both. I didn't reply. Because in truth, he was right. I had justice. But I had no womb. No baby. No peace. And the next day, I got a call that would change everything. I was sitting in Caroline's apartment the next morning, wrapped in a thick blanket, holding a cup of tea I could barely drink. I hadn't eaten since the day before. My body was shaking, not from cold but from the heaviness of it all. Grief, betrayal, disbelief. Then my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. Hello. A woman's voice came through, soft and unsure. Is this Grace? Yes. Who's this? There was a pause. Then she spoke the words that made my entire body freeze. My name is Linda. I think we need to talk. It's about Richard and our son. I couldn't speak. My lips parted, but no words came out. Please, she continued. I'm not calling to fight. I just found out what he did to you. My heart stopped. How? I finally managed. I saw the news, she said. He was arrested last night. I didn't know why, but when I searched his name, I saw the reports, the charges, everything. I couldn't breathe. The story had already gotten out. I hadn't expected it to spread that fast. Can we meet? She asked gently. There's something you need to know. I didn't know what to expect, but something inside told me I needed to hear her. So I agreed. We met at a small cafe near the park neutral ground. She was younger than me, maybe in her early 20s, slim, pretty, and nervous. She was holding a sleeping baby in her arms. The moment we made eye contact, I knew it was real. This was the woman from the photographs. And this was Richard's child. I didn't know he was engaged to you, she said, eyes wide with sorrow. He told me he was divorced. Said he was struggling with a woman who couldn't let go. He made me believe I was the only one. I swallowed hard. How long were you two together? Almost 2 years. I gasped. That meant he started seeing her before he even proposed to me. She looked away, ashamed. I found out I was pregnant last year. He begged me not to tell anyone. Said it would ruin his career. But he never told me about you. Never. I stared at the child in her arms. A boy about 7 months old. He looked like Richard, same nose, same curly hair. And now, I asked, my voice hollow. She bit her lip. Now I'm alone. He hasn't sent money in months. He stopped coming around. I thought he was stressed. Now I know. He was planning a life with you, while destroying yours. I blinked back tears. I didn't want to cry in front of her. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to be part of this. I believe you, I said. Because I did. I could see it in her eyes. She was used, just like me. We sat in silence for a while. Then she reached into her purse and handed me something. A journal. I found this in his apartment. I thought it might help you understand. I took it with trembling hands. She stood to leave. If you ever want to meet the baby again, let me know. And just like that, she walked away. I sat there staring at the journal. It was black leather worn at the edges. Richard's handwriting filled every page. Plans, thoughts, lies. And then halfway through I saw my name. Grace is getting suspicious. She asked me why I keep making her smoothies. I need to be more careful. I can't afford another mistake. The last dose made her bleed too early. My breath caught in my throat. The doctor said another pregnancy might not be safe for her. Good. That means no more surprises. I'll keep her calm. Once we're married, I'll end it gently. Tears spilled down my face. It wasn't just about not wanting children. He had been calculating my pain. I read more. Linda's baby looks just like me. Can't risk him finding out he has a half-sibling. I need to shut that down. Shut that down. Did that mean he planned to hurt Linda too? My mind raced. I called her immediately. Lock your doors, I said. Don't let anyone in. I think he was planning more than we thought. She was silent for a moment, then whispered, Grace, he has a spare key to my flat. I hung up and called the police straight away. They acted quickly. Officers went to Linda's apartment and changed the locks. They searched his phone and emails. What they found made my skin crawl. He had tried to order more pills. This time under a fake name. He was planning to do it again. To her. To someone else. Anyone who got in his way. This man wasn't just toxic. He was dangerous. Back at home, I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was pale. My eyes sunken. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. I had lost 3 babies. I had lost my fertility. I had lost the man I thought loved me. But I hadn't lost myself. Not yet. So I made a decision. I went back to the lawyer and told him to move forward with the full case. I wanted every charge filed. I wanted him exposed. No more hiding. No more protecting him from shame. If I was barren, if I was broken, if my name was now tied to pain, then the truth would set me free. The court date was set. And that's when the threats started. Anonymous notes. Phone calls with no voice on the other end. My tires slashed. Someone didn't want me to speak. But I was ready. Even if it killed me. I would tell the world what Richard did. And the next morning, as I opened my front door to head to the police station, I found a package on the doorstep. Inside it was a small box. And what was inside that box nearly stopped my heart. I stared at the small box in my hands, cold sweat gathering on my forehead. It was wrapped neatly, almost like a gift, with a red ribbon tied across the top. But something about it felt wrong. Evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it wears ribbons and bows. I took a deep breath and opened it slowly. Inside was a single white baby sock. Just one. Next to it, a tiny silver spoon engraved with the letter G. My hands started shaking uncontrollably. The sock looked exactly like the ones I had bought when I was first pregnant. I had hidden them away after the first miscarriage, too heartbroken to throw them out. The spoon was a gift from my mother when I was a child. Something I kept locked away in my old memory box. How did it get here? And more importantly, who sent this? I looked around wildly, expecting to see someone watching from the street. But there was no one. Just the empty silence of the morning. I dropped the box, ran inside, and locked the door. My heart wouldn't stop racing. Someone had been in my home again. Someone had gone through my things. Someone wanted me to feel fear. And it was working. I called the police immediately. When they arrived, they dusted the box for fingerprints and questioned the neighbors. But as usual, no one had seen anything.
No stręże vehicles. No strangers lurking.
Nothing. It felt like I was being haunted by my own past, by the truth, and by the man who once swore to love me. Caroline came over that night and stayed with me. She tried to distract me with funny stories from our college days, but I was miles away. I couldn't stop thinking about the sock, the spoon, and what it all meant. Was it a threat? Was it Richard? Or worse, was someone helping him? The next day, I went back to the police station to submit the journal I had found in Richard's box. I watched as the detective flipped through the pages, frowning deeply. "This changes everything," he muttered. "It's not just about you anymore, Grace. He planned harm to more than one woman, possibly even his own child's mother." "I know," I said quietly. "And he's still trying to scare me." "We'll move forward with protective measures," the officer promised. "You'll be watched until the trial." But I didn't feel safe. Not really. Not when someone had broken into my house without a trace. That night, I opened Richard's journal again. I read every single word, trying to find clues. Something. Anything. And then I saw a strange phrase. Project M, final stage. Erase history, rebuild with silence. What did that mean? Project M? Was that what he called his sick plan? I turned the page and found a folded note tucked between the sheets. It wasn't in Richard's handwriting. It was from someone else. "Don't forget the payment. I handled it like you asked. No one suspects anything. This ends here." There was no name. No signature. But my mind immediately went to one person I had always doubted. His brother. Marcus. Marcus had always been quiet around me. Too quiet. He never looked me in the eye. He avoided family dinners when I was around, and when I miscarried the second time, he didn't even send a text. I had once overheard a strange phone call between the two of them. Months before all this began. "Richard, she's getting too attached. Marcus, handle it, before she ruins everything." Back then, I thought they were talking about a client at work. But now, I wasn't so sure. I called the police and told them everything. They said they'd look into Marcus's involvement. But something in me knew that Richard didn't act alone. Someone had helped him. Someone close. Someone who knew how to avoid cameras, alarms, and locks. I was slowly uncovering more layers of this nightmare. But the closer I got to the truth, the more danger I felt. A few days later, I received a text from a private number. "You're playing with fire. Back out now or it won't just be baby socks you find." I dropped the phone. Caroline rushed into the room, picked it up and read the message aloud. Her face turned pale. "This isn't just fear tactics," she said. "They're warning you. Seriously, Grace, maybe we should leave the city. Just for a while." I wanted to agree. But I also knew something deep in my soul. If I ran, I'd be running forever. I had already lost so much. My body. My trust. My peace. I couldn't lose my voice too. So I stayed. The trial date was drawing closer. And while the case was being built, the media got wind of it. Soon my face was in newspapers, blogs, and TV screens. London woman claims fiancé secretly aborted 3 pregnancies. Some believed me. Many didn't. The comments were brutal. "She probably did it herself and wants someone to blame. She should have been more careful. She just wants fame." They didn't know my pain. They didn't know how it felt to watch blood spill from you. Your own baby. And have the man who caused it bring you a cup of tea afterward, pretending to care. One night, I was sitting alone, watching the baby sock roll between my fingers, when my doorbell rang. It was past 10 p.m. My heart skipped. I didn't move. Didn't speak. The bell rang again. Then a voice. "Grace, it's Marcus. I just want to talk." I froze. He sounded calm. Too calm. "I know what you think," he said through the door. "But you're wrong." I didn't reply. "Richard didn't do this alone." "But it wasn't me," he said. "It was someone else. Someone you trusted." My blood turned to ice. "I can't say more here," Marcus whispered. "Meet me tomorrow at Whitechapel Bridge. Noon. Come alone. You'll finally know the full truth." And then he walked away. I was left shaking, holding a baby sock in one hand and 1,000 questions in the other. Who could it be? If not Marcus? Then who else in my life helped Richard do this to me? The next day I went to Whitechapel Bridge. And what happened there? Changed everything. The morning was cold and gray as I made my way to Whitechapel Bridge. I wore a long coat and kept my head down, my eyes darting left and right. I didn't know if I was walking into the arms of truth or the jaws of danger. Caroline had begged me not to go alone. Please, Grace. What if it's a trap? She'd said. But I needed answers. I needed to know who had betrayed me. If it wasn't Marcus, then someone else close to me had helped Richard ruin my life. I reached the bridge at exactly noon. It was mostly empty, just a couple of tourists in the distance and an old man feeding pigeons. I waited by the middle rail, heart pounding. A few minutes later I saw him, Marcus. He was wearing a black hoodie and jeans, sunglasses hiding most of his face. He walked toward me slowly, cautiously, as if he too wasn't sure how this would go. Grace, he said. I didn't respond. I know you don't trust me, he continued. And I don't blame you. But I came because you deserve to know everything. I folded my arms tightly. Start talking. He looked over his shoulder, then leaned in slightly. Richard didn't just wake up one day and decide to do what he did. Someone planted the idea. Someone fed his fear about becoming a father again. I frowned. Who? He hesitated, then said, Your best friend, Caroline. I blinked, stunned. That's not funny. I'm serious, he said. Richard and Caroline were close. Too close. I shook my head, backing away. No. You're lying. Caroline is the only one who stood by me when I lost everything. I thought the same, he said. But I saw her with Richard more than once. Meeting in restaurants, parked outside his flat, even before your first pregnancy. I didn't think much of it at first. But when things started to fall apart, I began to wonder. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. Do you have proof? I asked. He reached into his pocket and handed me a flash drive. Videos. Pictures. Messages. Everything. I've been watching for a while. But I couldn't come forward. Richard made sure I'd lose everything if I did. I took the flash drive with trembling hands. If what you're saying is true, I said slowly. She didn't just help him, she pretended to comfort me while destroying me. Marcus nodded. She's been playing both sides. Feeding him your fears, your movements, everything. And in return he promised her money. Maybe more. I couldn't breathe. All the late-night calls she said were work. The time she'd show up with food and drinks without me asking. The way she insisted I not press charges in the beginning. The look on her face when I found the baby sock. It all made sense now. Tears filled my eyes. I let her into my home. Into my heart. She fooled us both, Marcus said quietly. I felt dizzy. I leaned on the railing, struggling to stay upright. Why tell me now? I asked. Because I'm tired, he said. Tired of the lies. Tired of watching lives fall apart. You deserve to heal. And she doesn't deserve your trust. I clutched the flash drive tightly. If you're lying. I'm not. He turned and walked away, leaving me alone on the bridge, the wind howling around me. I rushed home and plugged the flash drive into my laptop. What I saw made me sick. Photos of Caroline and Richard kissing outside a hotel. Text messages. Caroline. She suspects something. You need to act fast. Richard. Relax. I gave her the tea. She won't make it to next week. Caroline, good. Then we can finally move on and stop this baby madness. My entire body went cold. I screamed. I threw the laptop across the room. I collapsed to the floor, sobbing so loudly the neighbors came knocking. Caroline. My best friend. She had looked me in the eye, hugged me while I bled, wiped my tears, cooked me soup. And all that time she was helping him kill my babies. I had no strength left. Just rage.
Pure. Burning rage.
I called the police again, this time with the evidence. They moved fast. Within hours, Caroline was arrested at her office. She cried, screamed, swore it was a mistake. But the text didn't lie. The surveillance photos didn't lie. The truth had come out. I sat in silence for hours after she was taken. I wasn't sure what hurt more. Richard stealing my future or Caroline stabbing me from behind. I felt hollow. Like a ghost of the woman I used to be. And then came the court date. The day I would face them both. Richard, Caroline. Two people I had loved. Two people who had buried pieces of me under smiles and lies. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, lawyers, victims' advocates. The judge read out the charges: attempted forced abortion, endangerment, bodily harm, conspiracy to commit assault. I took the stand. My voice trembled. My hands shook. But I spoke. I trusted him with my life. I trusted her with my heart. And they took everything from me. I will never carry a child. I will never be a mother. Not because of sickness. Not because of God. But because of them. The courtroom was silent. Some people cried. Others stared in disbelief. Richard refused to look at me. Caroline just sat pale and broken. No longer the friend who used to braid my hair and call me sister. After I stepped down, the evidence was presented. The journal. The pills. The flash drive. The medical reports. The betrayal was undeniable. The judge adjourned for sentencing. Outside the court, a woman I didn't know walked up to me. She was middle-aged, holding a baby of her own. "I saw your story on TV," she said. "I lost my child too. But hearing your voice gave me strength. You're not just a victim. You're a fighter." I smiled faintly. Maybe I couldn't undo the damage. Maybe I would never hold a baby in my arms. But I still had my truth. Now? The world had it too. That night, as I returned home, I saw a letter had been pushed under my door. No name. No address. Just 6 words, scrawled in red ink. "This isn't over. Watch your back." I looked up slowly, heart pounding once again. I stared at the letter on the floor, hands trembling. 6 words. "This isn't over. Watch your back." Scratched in angry red ink, like blood on paper. I picked it up carefully, checking for fingerprints, but I knew I had to be cautious. I placed it in a plastic bag, just as the police had taught me. The trial wasn't even over, and someone was already trying to scare me again. But who? Richard was behind bars. Caroline was in custody. Unless there was still someone else involved. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound made me jump. I kept checking the locks, peeking through the curtains, heart racing with fear. The walls of my home, once safe, now felt like a cage. The next morning, I went straight to the police station and handed in the note. The officer read it and sighed. "This is serious," he said. "We'll have a patrol car check your house regularly. And if you're willing, we can put you in a safe house until the final hearing." I shook my head. "No. I'm done running. I won't live in fear anymore." He nodded with respect, but I could see the concern in his eyes. I returned home that afternoon and began to clean the house. Not because it was dirty, but because I needed to take back control. Every corner reminded me of Richard's lies, of Caroline's betrayal. So I threw out everything. Every picture. Every gift. Every glass he had ever handed me. While sorting through the last box of junk in the hallway closet, I found an envelope, one I'd never seen before. It was addressed to Richard. Curious, I opened it. Inside was a typed letter. As agreed, all deliveries were made. No traces. Client satisfaction guaranteed. Do not contact us again unless necessary. Payment was received in full. And at the bottom, a small logo. Nova Health Distributions. It sounded like a medical company. But the tone didn't feel professional. Felt illegal. Was this the group that supplied him with the abortion drugs? Was this who he meant when he said handled? I looked them up online. Nothing. No official website. No public listings. Just vague forum comments and a few shady medical threads. People whispering about quiet solutions. No questions asked deliveries. And undetectable help. My stomach turned. I had stumbled onto something bigger than Richard and Caroline. A network. An underground medical ring. And Richard had used them to destroy me. Quietly, discreetly. I called Marcus. He answered on the second ring. "Grace, do you know anything about a group called Nova Health Distributions?" There was silence on the line. Too long. "Marcus," I pressed. "Don't lie. I've heard of them," he said finally. "They're not legit. They operate through the dark web. High-end private clients. Politicians. Lawyers. People who want problems handled without public record. And you didn't think to tell me this before? I didn't know Richard had gone that far. I thought he was just buying pills online, not contracting services. I was shaking again. He didn't just destroy my babies. He used a system that's probably done it to hundreds of women. Marcus went quiet again. Grace, if you go after them, you'll be in danger. I almost laughed. I'm already in danger. That night, I couldn't sleep again. But this time it wasn't fear that kept me up. It was fire. A hunger for justice that stretched beyond my personal pain. I decided to dig deeper. I contacted a journalist who had been following my story, Amanda Hart. She was known for exposing underground rings and corruption in high places. I showed her the letter, the logo, and the forum posts. Her eyes widened. Grace, she whispered. If this is real, this is huge. Then let's make it known, I said. She agreed to investigate. She promised to keep me anonymous for now, but deep down, I knew my face was already out there. If Nova Health got wind that I was sniffing around, they wouldn't hesitate to shut me up. Days passed. Amanda found more. Unlicensed labs. Fake courier services. Clients who paid in crypto. Several cases of spontaneous miscarriages that followed sudden illnesses, just like mine. She planned to go public soon. She even had a segment scheduled on national TV. But before that could happen, something terrifying occurred. I came home one evening to find my door wide open. My heart dropped. I slowly stepped inside. The lights were off. The air was thick. My hands trembled as I reached for the light switch. Click. And there it was. Smeared across my living room wall in red spray paint. Shut your mouth, Grace. Last warning. I screamed. The neighbors came rushing. The police arrived minutes later. Whoever did it had broken in quietly. No alarm, no cameras, no neighbors noticing. It was professional. Clean. Like they'd done it before. The officer looked at me seriously. This is no longer about Richard or Caroline. You're up against something bigger now. We need to move you into protective custody. This time I agreed. They moved me to a secure hotel outside the city. I was given a new phone, a new name, and a team of plainclothes officers who watched my every move. But I was not done. Amanda's report aired that weekend. The public response was explosive. Women began to come forward. Stories of lost pregnancies, suspicious partners, weird illnesses during early stages of pregnancy. And all of them had one thing in common. They had received care packages or drinks or vitamins from someone close to them. And most had seen the name Nova somewhere in the packaging. The police launched a national investigation. Nova Health was suddenly everywhere in the media. And that's when I received another package, delivered to the hotel, despite all the security. It was a USB stick. And a single note. You should have stayed quiet. Now watch what happens next. I plugged it in with shaking hands. A video began to play. It showed Caroline in her prison cell, talking to someone off camera. She was laughing. Calm. Cold. I don't care what she does, Caroline said. I did what I had to do. Richard made his choices. I made mine. Grace was never meant to be a mother anyway. Look how weak she is. The camera angle shifted. The man she was talking to? Marcus. He leaned in and smiled. She doesn't know the half of it. My entire world collapsed. The one person I thought had finally told me the truth, the one who handed me that flash drive, was part of it all along. Everything was a setup. I dropped the USB stick. My hands were frozen. My heart pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. Marcus? Marcus? I replayed the video, praying my eyes were lying. But no, it was him. Smiling. Calm. Sitting with Caroline like they were partners. Like they'd always been. I told you she was too emotional, he said in the video, voice steady. Grace was never going to let go. That's why Richard panicked. That's why he called me. Caroline laughed. Then let her suffer. The more she digs, the deeper she falls. I couldn't breathe. The walls of the safe hotel room suddenly felt tighter than a coffin. My mind was racing, rewinding every word Marcus ever said. Every moment he stood beside me like a trusted friend, helping me, comforting me. He had been part of this from the beginning. He knew about Richard. He knew about Nova. He probably even knew about the abortions before I found out. My knees gave way, and I sank to the floor. For a long time I didn't cry. I couldn't. The shock was too deep. But when the tears came, they came like a flood that wouldn't stop. I wasn't just grieving my babies anymore. I was grieving every ounce of trust one had left. The next morning, I handed the USB over to the police. They were stunned. This is evidence of conspiracy, one officer said. Caroline, Marcus, Richard, this isn't just personal. This is organized manipulation, Grace. They planned this. Amanda showed up that afternoon. Her eyes were wide with disbelief. I saw the footage. Grace, this changes everything. But why? I whispered. Why would Marcus do this? Why lie to me? Why help me only to stab me in the back? Amanda hesitated. I did some digging. Marcus isn't who you think he is. His real name is Marciano Peters. He's been involved with Nova Health for years, posing as a consultant to high-profile clients who want situations erased. Abortions, sterilizations, fake prescriptions. He's their cleanup man. He helps victims feel safe until they stop asking questions. I felt sick to my stomach. I had let him into my heart, into my pain. And all along he was watching me like a project, another loose end to be handled. They wanted to silence you, Amanda said softly. But you spoke louder than any of them expected. But at what cost? I whispered. She looked at me sadly. Your story is already saving lives. But it's not over yet. Later that night, I sat in the hotel bathroom, staring at my reflection. My face was thinner, older, tired. My eyes had changed, from soft and hopeful to hard and searching. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. But I did recognize her strength. Because despite everything, I was still standing. My phone buzzed. An anonymous text. We see what you're doing. You have 48 hours to disappear. Or you'll disappear permanently. I stared at the message. My hands didn't tremble this time. I walked out to the living room and told the officers, I'm ready to go public. You sure? One asked. This won't be safe. I know, I said. But I'd rather die telling the truth than live with one more lie. The press conference was held in a small, tightly secured hall in the heart of the city. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't fancy. But it was safe, and it had enough cameras to reach the world. I sat there, trembling but steady, in front of a row of flashing lights and microphones. Amanda sat beside me, holding a folder of evidence, documents, lab reports, and that USB drive. The police were in the back, watching cautious. And I was about to do the hardest thing I'd ever done. I looked into the sea of reporters, and I spoke. My name is Grace Turner. I'm 67 years old. And this is my story. I told them everything. I told them how I fell in love with a man named Richard. How I thought I was safe. How I believed we were building a life, a family. How I became pregnant over and over. And how each pregnancy ended in a painful, unexplained loss. How I later discovered that he had been poisoning me with abortion drugs without my knowledge, mixing them into my drinks, lacing my tea. I thought I was crazy, I said, tears rising. I thought my body had failed me. I blamed myself for years until I found out the truth. He made me barren. There were gasps in the room. One reporter dropped his pen. Another just stared open-mouthed. But that wasn't the end, I continued. He had help. From Caroline, a doctor who ensured the damage was permanent. And from Marcus, the man who pretended to support me, while secretly working for the same people who ruined my life. Amanda played the video from the USB on a large screen behind me. The entire room went still. Watching Richard. Watching Caroline. Watching Marcus talk like I was a puppet they were controlling. It was the most humiliating, empowering moment of my life. When I finished, I said, they thought they could silence me. But the truth speaks louder. I'm not the only woman this has happened to, and I won't be the last. But maybe, just maybe, if you're watching this, you'll look closer at the people around you. You'll trust your gut. You'll protect your body. And you'll speak up. The press erupted into questions. The police stepped forward to escort me out quickly and safely. Reporters chased us to the car yelling, "Mrs. Turner, do you fear for your life? And is Marcus still out there? And do you regret coming forward?" I didn't answer. I just got into the car, closed the door, and let out a long, shaking breath. 2 hours later, the story was everywhere. Woman exposes illegal abortion ring. Victim of fiancé's deception. Grace Turner. The woman who lost everything and fought back. Messages poured in from other women. Women who had similar symptoms. Women who had felt something was wrong. Women who had miscarried again and never had answers. The truth had finally hit daylight. But the war wasn't over. That night my hotel room phone rang. "Hello." I answered, cautiously. A deep voice replied, "You think you've won? That was cute. But you've only made it worse. You're not safe anymore, Grace." Click. I sat still for a moment. Then I stood, grabbed my bag, and walked to the officers. I need protection. And I need it now. They moved me into protective custody. A different hotel. A new name. No phones. No outside contact. For 2 days I stayed hidden. Heart pounding every time I heard a knock. Every time a car pulled up. Every time a shadow passed the window. But on the 3rd day, Amanda slipped in with news. "They found Marcus," she whispered. "Where?" "In Mexico. He tried to run. But Interpol grabbed him." My heart clenched. "What about Caroline and Richard?" "Gone," she said quietly. "Disappeared. They knew the net was closing." I leaned back, eyes closing. Relief didn't come. Only cold, bitter silence. Even if justice came, it wouldn't return what I'd lost. But it would stop them from doing it to another woman. I slept that night for the first time in weeks. Until I woke up to an explosion. The fire alarm blared. Flames were licking the hall. Smoke filled the air. And someone was pounding at my door. "Grace, open the door," a man's voice shouted. I looked through the peephole. It wasn't a hotel staff member. It was Richard. I froze. It was him. Richard. The man who destroyed my body and almost destroyed my mind. The man I thought I'd never see again. He stood right outside my door, eyes wild, face sweaty, and shouting my name like a madman. "Grace, open this door. We need to talk." I stepped back slowly, trembling from head to toe. The fire alarm was still screeching. Smoke crawled under the door like a snake. I could barely breathe, but I didn't move. I didn't even blink. "Grace, I swear to God, if you don't open this door, I'll burn with you," he yelled. That's when it hit me, he had started the fire. This wasn't just panic. This was a trap. One last desperate attempt to silence me. I ran to the phone in the room, but the line was dead. I grabbed the emergency phone. No dial tone. The fire must have knocked it out. I dashed to the window, too high to jump. Thick smoke was everywhere now. My eyes burned, my throat stung. I had seconds. Suddenly, someone kicked the door in with one powerful strike. Richard burst in, coughing and limping. His eyes locked on mine. Something in them had changed. He didn't look human anymore. He looked like a cornered animal. "You shouldn't have done this to me," he rasped, walking closer. "You ruined everything, Grace. Everything." I reached for the lamp by the bed and swung it with all the strength I had left. It hit his shoulder and shattered. He stumbled but didn't fall. "You think you're brave now," he hissed. "You think you're a hero? You're still just the same stupid woman who begged me for a baby." That broke something inside me. I grabbed the metal rod from the fallen lamp and screamed, "You stole my babies! You stole my future!" And I struck. Again. And again. Until he was on the ground. Until the fireman burst through the hallway and dragged me out. The rest was chaos. I was rushed to the hospital for smoke inhalation. Richard was taken into custody, unconscious but alive. They said he'd broken into the hotel under a fake name, bribed a worker, and set the fire himself. He was charged with attempted murder, arson, and multiple counts of assault. Caroline was caught a week later in Morocco. She had changed her identity, but someone recognized her face from a TV broadcast. She went quietly. And Marcus tried to make a deal. He offered to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. It didn't work. The evidence was too strong, the crimes too dark. He got 25 years. Richard got life. Caroline got 40 years and lost her medical license forever. The trial was long and painful. I had to testify again and again, relive every moment, show photos, cry in front of strangers. But the day the judge slammed that gavel and said, "Guilty on all counts," I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Peace. I went back to my quiet home in Georgia. No more hiding. No more running. I planted flowers in my garden again. I read books. I cooked small meals for one. Sometimes I cried. Other times I smiled. Amanda visited me every weekend. We grew close, closer than blood. She called me Mama G. One Sunday afternoon, as we sat on the porch drinking lemonade, she said, "Do you ever think about adopting?" I looked at her surprised. "At my age has nothing to do with love," she said softly. "You've got so much of it to give." That night, I thought about all the children out there. The ones no one wanted. The ones who had been hurt, like me. I had no womb to carry a baby in, but I had a heart, a big, aching one that still had room. So I adopted a girl. Her name was Hope. She was 6 years old, quiet, with eyes too old for her age. Abandoned by her family, passed from home to home. I gave her my name, my home, my love. And for the first time in a very long time, I became a mother. But one day, 5 years later, something happened. Hope came home from school with a torn note in her backpack. It read, "You think you've moved on? We're not done yet. You took one of ours, we'll take her back." It wasn't signed. I looked around our quiet street. No one there. But I knew. Someone was watching. That note nearly stopped my heart. I sat at the edge of the bed, gripping it with shaking hands, reading it again and again. My eyes blurred with tears, but I forced myself to stay calm. Hope, my daughter, my miracle, was humming happily in the living room, unaware of the storm gathering outside. How could they still be after me? Richard was in prison. Caroline was locked away. Marcus had vanished behind bars. Who else was left? I took a deep breath, wiped my eyes, and walked to the living room, forcing a smile. Hope looked up at me, her small face glowing. "Mama G, can I have some more juice?" I nodded, ruffling her hair. "Of course, baby." In the kitchen, I dialed Amanda. She picked up on the second ring. "Grace? Everything okay?" "No," I whispered. "I just got a note. Someone threatened to take Hope." Silence. Then, "I'm coming over now." Within 30 minutes, Amanda pulled into my driveway with her husband, a retired detective named Ben. They both came inside, eyes scanning the windows and corners like hawks. I showed them the note. Ben read it, frowning deeply. "Where exactly did you find this?" "In Hope's backpack." "Anyone new around her school? New teachers, janitors, volunteers?" I shook my head. "I'll ask tomorrow." Ben said he'd install cameras, alarms, and check with some old contacts in the force. Amanda stayed with me that night. Neither of us slept. The next morning, I took Hope to school myself. I walked her in, looked every teacher in the eye. Nothing felt off, until I saw a janitor watching us from the hallway. He was tall, pale, covered in tattoos. When our eyes met, he looked away too quickly. I walked past him, pretending not to notice. That afternoon, I returned early. I waited in my car, watching. At 2:45 p.m., school ended. Children rushed out. Parents hugged their little ones. But Hope didn't come out. My heart dropped. I ran to the front door. "Where is Hope?" One teacher ran out. "She said you called and asked her to wait outside by the back gate." "No, I didn't." I sprinted around the building. There in the distance, I saw her, standing by the chain-link fence, and someone in a hoodie talking to her. I screamed, "Hope, run to me." She turned, confused. The figure grabbed her hand. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I ran faster than I ever had in my life. The person tried to pull her, but Hope fought. She kicked and screamed, "Mama G, Mama G." That gave me strength. I slammed into the figure, knocking them to the ground. I covered Hope with my body. Ben had followed me without a word. He tackled the attacker and pulled the hood off. It was a woman. Older. Dark eyes. scars on her face. Who sent you? Ben barked. She spat blood. You think we forget? Marcus was my brother. You got him locked up. You think prison stops loyalty? Police came. She was arrested on the spot. Hope cried into my chest the entire way home. Later that night, I sat her down and told her everything. About the pain, the loss, the years I spent fighting for justice. I told her the truth, in a way her little heart could understand. And she said something I'll never forget. Mama G, they tried to take me away, but I'm not scared. Because you're the strongest person in the world. And I'm yours forever. Tears rolled down my cheeks. Yes, I had been broken before. Yes, I had lost things I could never get back. My babies, my womb, my trust. But somehow, in the ashes of all that pain, I found family. I found purpose. I found healing. Richard tried to ruin my life with poison. Marcus tried to silence me with threats. Caroline tried to erase my truth with lies. But none of them won. I survived. And I used my broken pieces to build a home for someone else. A home full of love. Even if the road there was full of pain. So if you're hearing my story today, take this from me. Never let someone's evil convince you that love is dead. Because even when your body is scarred, even when your heart is tired, love can still bloom again. In a hug, in a child's smile, in your decision to stand up and speak the truth. I am Grandma Grace. And I may be barren by body, but in my heart, I am more of a mother than I ever imagined I could be.
Thank you for listening to this story, my dear ones. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Grandma's Tales. Like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us where you're listening from. I love hearing from each and every one of you. Until we meet again in another story, stay strong, stay kind, and remember, you are never alone.